are back, kinda-ish, mostly. It's apparently one of those. Apparently Discord is having some issues. So bear with us if audio ends up a bit crackly or cameras go down. We're doing what we can. Right.
Everything's like it's been smeared in Vaseline, so
Oh jeez.
it's good. It's all very smooth.
I mean, honestly, the cameras to me look like what it looks like when I'm not wearing my glasses. So,
maybe that is the problem.
Yeah, so...
Whoops.
Anyway, the alerts are now off. Remember, you can submit questions as we go using channel points redemption. Please try and avoid using any of the other ones that are going to switch cams and such forth. You know which ones they are. Because Psy is, funnily enough, not plugged in, so do not use SciCam. So, let's get started. For those who don't know or are new to this, welcome. This is the live recording of the Through Our Eyes podcast. This is our first one of the year. Yay!
And I cursed it by accident. I'm so sorry.
Goldar.
This podcast focuses on highlighting marginalised creators, talking through their story and the experiences that they have, the challenges that they face, and trying to bring a little bit of education to the general masses of Twitch. This came from a bigger project that I will hand over to Paige to talk about.
Yes, so the Through Our Eyes streams are a bigger sort of 8 to 10 hour discussion that happen every couple of months. It's technically on hiatus at the moment while I still try and figure out health issues versus job versus pandemic versus what is life. So it will be coming back early. It's Q1, I have to say, in game terms. Q1 this year, there will be the next Through Our Eyes stream focusing on physical health, that being, disability, chronic illness, all these kinds of umbrella topics around health. But yes, we put them together, 8 to 10 hours, 30 odd guests just sort of piled into a Discord when it works. And we chat all about life. We focus on awkward questions that you may not normally want to answer, and go from there and try and educate in some of the more difficult topics.
And from that, what we experienced was that we struggled to highlight individual people's stories because it was such a larger group of people discussing topics together. So we thought podcast would help us highlight the individuals. So today we have This is Goldar. Would you like to introduce yourself, tell us your pronouns, the content you produce, and your handles, please?
Sure, I'm Goldar. This is Goldar on like everything, like Twitter, Twitch, all of that. I have already forgotten what else you asked, but
pronouns.
Pronouns. She, her. Occasionally they. I am weird about pronouns, but it's fine.
Content produced.
Most of my like streaming content has been art and craft streams. General chaos, like wholesome shit posting is kind of the vibe that I go for. It's a bit eldritch and a bit weird, but it's also, I'm not going to do anything, to ever hurt anybody on purpose. And if I do it by accident, I will fix it.
Fair enough. And you have eyes everywhere.
Yes. I'm watching. I'm always watching. Very, very much always watching. Yeah.
So tell us why you've joined us here today on the podcast.
I wanted to talk about what it's like being chronically ill, but completely or 99% undiagnosed, because it's a whole different thing when you don't actually have words or tools to figure out what's going on. You're just like, it's time to suffer. Okay. You can't put it into a little box very easily because you don't have a box. You have a box shape that's over there, and it's kind of messy, So,
Paige, do you need to?
No, I'm just listening instead of watching. Unfortunately for me, because Discord's having a little trouble, all the video and audio is completely unsynced, like 20 seconds apart. So it's very difficult to tell when people are talking. Because I can hear you, but I'm like, was that like a minute ago? Has everyone just been sat? What's
No.
Crap.
That's why I just disabled my cameras, minimized Discord. I'm just looking at my phone for stream chat, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, we are aware that the audio is a bit balked, hence the reason I warned prior to us starting that it was having some issues, because Discord apparently has decided that now it's going to fail just in time for the podcast.
Yeah.
Yay! Okay. Paige, do you want to try dropping out of the call and then coming back in and seeing if that helps it?
Will do. Give me a moment.
And now we're like skewed across three.
Just the top of my head.
Oh dear.
Channel for a moment, just sort of stared at it like, where has it gone? This is a cursed day.
It's my fault. I swear. Like, I didn't do it on purpose.
It wasn't
It
you,
is
I don't think.
absolutely because of me.
I blame Ty, technically.
Right.
Good job, Ty.
1 2 1 2. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Cool. Right. So hopefully that's sorted. Okay. Right. So on to our first question. Would you tell us the lowdown of your story? Why you're wanting to talk about this? When did it start?
Sure. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it kind of starts at the very, my childhood. I've always had, hypermobility issues that everybody was just like, oh, you're just clumsy. But none of my siblings would, dislocate their ankles every 5 minutes. That little things like that over time kind of formed a pattern that I can look back on. But as a kid, it didn't register. But when I was about 18, the family came down with some food poisoning. Specifically, me and one of my sisters and my dad. I got it the worst and went untreated for it because we didn't have health insurance for me because I had turned 18. So my dad was in the doctors, he was better in 3 days. My sister had it really mild, was better in 2 days with no treatment or whatever. I was down for about 2 weeks with it, and I'm pretty sure that was the beginning of my digestive problems that I now have. Probably around 1920, I went 3 months where I couldn't actually eat any food without being wildly and violently ill in both directions. And that it was one of those things where looking back at it, I'm that should have been addressed, but we didn't have insurance and it just wasn't, And then I had a 13-hour pain episode in my abdomen, which I now know was appendicitis, but we didn't do anything about it for 13 hours. I finally went into the ER. They charged me $800 to give me anti-nausea medication, which I wasn't nauseous. I was in pain. And then they sent me home with an $800 bill. I was like, okay, cool. We just spent 6 hours in the ER for nothing. And so, like, for the next few years like that, I just kind of on and off would have episodes where I couldn't eat, you know, or I could eat. I had an appetite, but every time I would eat anything or even drink anything more than water, I would get sick. And like, it was just kind of a thing. It became part of life. And I don't really like saying it out loud. It sounds really bad. But yeah. Then my appendix flared up again. Once I was on my own, I was employed, and I didn't have health insurance then either. But I went to the ER, and they were like, "Oh, this shows signs of having happened before." And I was like, "Yeah, this is pretty familiar, actually." This time, you know, they took it out, gave me a $25,000 hospital bill, and yeah, I ended up settling the bill for $6,000 cash because I had gotten inheritance from my grandparents right before that happened. So I still paid out of pocket $6,000 for something that like was an emergency surgery, you know. And every like a few years after that or around that, I'm also bad at time, I apologize.
Good.
I went to another doctor who gave me like a half diagnosis. He did some blood tests and he said, "Oh, this needs more testing, but I think it's Hashimoto's and or celiac." But he didn't want to do any more tests. He didn't want to give me a proper diagnosis. This is not the first time that happened, and it probably won't be the last. But where, like, they say, giving me a proper diagnosis isn't going to help me. And that's very frustrating. Because I went to a psych doctor some years later, and they've done the same thing. So it's confusing because it's like, why do doctors not want to give you a diagnosis, like on paper, so I can take it to someone and say, this is what is going on, and not have to go through the whole process every time I need to get help with something, you know? So
this may be a very dumb question, but in America, are you able to sue if they misdiagnose? Is that possibly a reason? Because I'm trying to think in the UK, like, I've had people faff for ages around a diagnosis, but never flat out refuse to give one if I say I want one. And I'm thinking,
they could, but they didn't even want to continue doing tests or screenings or other things to get to that point. So I don't really know. I think in this case, it's a lot of they just want to treat the symptoms and they don't really want to find a cause and deal with it the same way, you know? So I've been gluten-free since like 2016 because the doctor just said stop eating wheat products and it'll help. I mean, yeah, I guess, because now if I eat wheat, I will like pretty much die. Not literally, but probably if I eat enough. But yeah, it's just been a lot of half diagnoses, and because I'm uninsured or even with insurance can't afford to do much, because when I was going to the psych doctors, I had insurance then, but I still couldn't afford to go to as many appointments as they wanted me to go to. But because I'm not insured or my insurance isn't good enough, I can't push to find a new doctor and to like really fight for a diagnosis and treatment because I don't have that kind of money, you know? Most people don't, really. I don't know what they expect you to be able to do, but it's very annoying. But yeah, it's the same when I tried to get them to give me an autism and ADHD diagnosis, because I would like to be able to outright say, hey, this is what is going on, and not feel like I'm self-diagnosing, even though there's nothing wrong with self-diagnosis if it's careful and researched and all of that. It's just, it would just be nice, you know? So, yeah. That is the basic outline of stuff. I feel like I'm just rambling. I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, to be fair, this question is basically the ramble question
Right.
to introduce us to the topic of what it is that is going on with you. So,
yeah.
I mean, don't worry, everyone rambles in when it comes to multiple illnesses, chronic illness.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've given us a bit of an overview there, but could you describe to us like some of the challenges that you face? How has it been affecting your life to have these chronic illnesses, but also without a diagnosis?
Right.
Is it affecting various parts of your life and hindering you in any way, shape, or form?
Oh, definitely. So probably the most like surface level one is just if I'm feeling sick for a day, it's hard to say, like, which is true for any chronic illness in general, but especially when you don't have a name for it. It's hard to be like, oh, it's this is flaring up today. I'll probably be fine tomorrow, but I might not be fine tomorrow. You know, and being able to explain to people who are not super aware of what it's like to be chronically ill that you're having a bad day. Like, if you say, I'm sick today, people that think, oh, you have a cold, you'll be better in 2 to 5 business days, it'll be fine, you know, it's like, it's not really like that, you know. The other one is that I can't be spontaneous very easily, because of the way that my stomach or my internal organs, whatever is going on, gets upset. It tends to be when I eat. And so if I have something to do in the afternoon, I can't eat breakfast. If I have something to do in the morning, I probably can't have dinner the night before because I have no idea when after that point it's going to hit. And yeah, usually it'll be like an hour after I eat or less, but sometimes it's not. So I have to like plan my meal times around specific events. And also, you know, what I can eat is extremely limited. Because there are things that do trigger it more often than not. So any vegetables, completely out of the question. And obviously all wheat products are out of the question. And now I've gone lactose free because that seems to also help. And so it's just a nightmare. But like people will be like, oh, do you want to come hang out today? And I'm like, I mean, this is pre-pandemic, of course, but it was very difficult because I'm like, well, I have, you know, I haven't planned for this. I don't have safe foods in the house that I know won't make me sick or that kind of thing. Not to mention just going out to eat somewhere. Just even if you plan for it, you can't really plan for it, you know? Yeah, that kind of stuff mostly is like the inability to just live my life like a standard optimal flesh prison is a bother.
So
Yeah.
how tell us a bit more about how it's been impacting you in terms of like your work. Like,
Right.
I mean,
Well,
I may be slightly biased because I know a little bit about you, but for example, I know that your sleep schedules are all over the place.
Oh yeah. Well, for a while when I was I was doing, like, when I was going to the psych doctors, I was actually on a lot of sleeping medication because they could not figure out why I could not sleep. I can't figure it out either. I, at some point, went on a really odd sleep pattern for a few months, and it worked really well. I would go to bed at about 7 p.m. and wake up at midnight, and I would just live my life. But at some point, work stuff started to get kind of stressful, and so I got off of that. But it does mean that, like, I rarely get more than 2 or 3 hours a night. I sleep best during the day, which is really annoying. But I will also, if I'm having like a bad stomach day, I might literally need to sleep for 12 hours. And, if I'm at work, I can't do that. And I can't usually just leave work to do that. So I'm very tired all of the time. Yeah, and I've read that there's something called like sleep patterns. I don't oh I'm not good at remembering the names of things. But there is a thing that some people just have a weird sleep pattern. And that's what I think is going on, but I don't know. So, yeah. But it also is, because right now I'm in a weird transition stage at work. I have like a second office that I'm going to, and it's not a very, if I get ill while I'm there, it's not really a friendly environment for that, because it's like a public restroom, and not good, not great,
I feel like that's something that everyone with a chronic illness can identify with. Public toilets,
Yeah.
enemy number one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Don't really like that. Especially with people who don't know me yet. Because, like, if it was like my office that I'm in now, the people that I've worked with for 10 years, they're gonna understand that, like, I'm not spending all of my time in the bathroom because I'm hanging out there, and they're not gonna probably burn me at the stake for, using the bathroom when I'm sick. But at the same time, the new office, I don't know these people. I know 2 people in that building. And they only knew me for about 3 months. Like, I have no idea. So even though I know, like, the perceived judgment is worse than any real judgment, because the real judgment isn't likely. And if it is, it means they're an asshole. And therefore shouldn't care. But the perceived judgment is confusingly very intense, It's very, very, very difficult to deal. It's kind of how I feel with the self-diagnosis thing, because there's so much criticism of people self-diagnosing. But at the same time, I'm aware that it's not all bad, that it's actually helpful for people, for me. But it still means that I feel like, ooh, I should maybe not do that. Even though you gotta. I don't know.
Yeah, I think perceived judgment almost works a little bit like that annoying little voice in your head that's like, well, you should be able to do this. You could do this one time. And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, and you don't even, I feel like it's maybe not even that we think other people actually think like that. It's like, that's what the hateful voice inside me thinks about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've also,
yeah.
I grew up hearing that too a lot, with the idea that I should just be more normal. Not so much with my physical health, but more with the autism, ADHD, and my thinking patterns are not what, they're not neurotypical. I don't understand things the same way. Things upset and bother me in different ways than they did the rest of my family. So I was the weird one, and I kind of internalized that idea that you should just be normal. There is no normal. There's perceived normal and societal normal, but there's not normal. And I do know that, but it's in there. You got to uproot it and throw it into the sun.
It's pervasive.
It is, yeah. It very much is.
Sorry, I was trying to make sure that the alerts didn't go off in it. Well, we're going, apparently they didn't turn off. Because, you know, chaos.
You're welcome.
Don't worry, it's still breaking all over the place for me, but we're managing. The other cat just barreled into the room and headbutted the door as well, so that happened. That door's never normally open, but she just face firsted it from the bathroom, so that's happened.
Oh
Just needs to
god,
be included.
that just feels like existence right now.
And she looked annoyed I perceived her and walked off, so
I didn't know you'd be here.
yeah,
Goodbye.
it's like, oh, I thought this. Okay, bye.
How dare? How very dare?
Yeah. Actually, she probably saw her brother. Was it you?
So, you've said that this has impacted quite significantly across multiple parts of your life. How has it affected your relationships? For example, with, as you were saying, the differences between you and your family, and being unable to attend social events spontaneously.
Yeah, it does mean like locally I have almost no friends. Because I don't do the hanging out thing. I don't, go out to eat places and all of that. Like I just don't do the traditional social stuff. So local friends, pretty much none. Family wise, there's things are getting better over time, but there is still some like discomfort there because I do have, memories of even up until a couple years ago, I was the one in the family who didn't match up to what was being done by the rest of them. Because of my anxiety, ADHD, autism, ball of hell, I didn't go to school. We were homeschooled up until a certain point, but my sisters went to high school. I did not because I was too overwhelmed and freaked out. So I didn't get my GED until they had both already graduated and were attending college. I got my GED and I got a job straight out of the GED. But it was just kind of that they seemed to think that I was lazy and not trying rather than that I was not able to do it at that time or that I was ill. But it is getting better. I think they're starting to understand a little more that it wasn't what they thought was going on kind of thing. And I mean, awareness of chronic illness and neurodivergence and all of that in the first place is getting better. So I think part of that is just they're learning what things mean and realizing that they're not completely neurotypical either. And, as they get older, they're getting hit with the genetic family chronic illnesses that my mom has. So, yeah, it's getting better. But it's still pretty strained, honestly.
So, was the neurodivergency ever professionally looked into? I think you mentioned earlier, but I can't quite remember.
I asked them to screen me for that, and the one doctor said it would actually make your life harder if you had a diagnosis. The other one said, I think it's this, and this, but we're not gonna write that down on your file. And I was like, why? And he just kind of like did the thing where you like brush through it and stuff. As if it was not important, because I'm an adult, because I'm female presenting, you know what I mean? Like I don't display the signs that a young boy does, so they don't think it's important because I'm not disruptive. Like they don't seem to see it as an issue. Especially, like, I don't even need a diagnosis for dyscalculia. I have every single one of the signs of it. I don't care about that. No one can tell me otherwise on that one. But everything else, it's like the imposter syndrome is the main reason I want to get it dealt with. Even if there's not medication to help with it, even if it doesn't change anything on a practical level, the lack of, like, the reduction in doubt would be amazing. just knowing for sure what's going on.
And what has stopped you from seeking opinions more recently? Now that there is more education in neurodivergency and more awareness around that, is it just the insurance level of stuff, or?
Yeah, it's finances at this point. I am employed at a relatively low rate. I'm taking care of 2 entire households worth of expenses. My mom is disabled but not on disability, because that's another whole clusterfuck in the United States. And so she can't work right now, and I am picking up her rent and her electric and like all of that stuff. So I can't afford to seek help, because everything that I have has to go into covering, the basics. And locally, awareness isn't nearly as high as with medical professionals, because I went to a doctor 2 years ago, and I was there for a specific, actually it was more like 3, because it was pre-pandemic. God, time is happening. Sorry.
No, totally with you there.
I forget why. I think I was there like a follow-up for something. I don't know. But I mentioned, like, the way I specifically was trying to dumb it down for them. And I was like, if I eat a vegetable, I will die. And they basically said, well, if you don't eat vegetables on a regular basis and then you eat a vegetable, your stomach might react to it because it's not used to it. And I was like, all right, well, you're useless. Like, yeah. I understand how gas works. That's not the problem here. The problem is the, like, other stuff that is happening as a result of that. Like, yeah, no. So it's very frustrating, because I don't think they want to understand. They just want you in and out. They want to prescribe you something, and there are obviously exceptions. I'm not saying all doctors are horrible. I'm just saying, as like a doctor society, it's not as dedicated to finding out what's wrong and fixing it as I think it should be.
Gosh, whereas in the UK, I found it's almost exactly the opposite. Like, when it came to giving me a diagnosis, they were like, oh, we'll throw that at you, but you can't have any medication. No, you need to go and do 1,000 different appointments to look at each of your symptoms, but we won't treat them until we know how fucked up you are. And it's like, okay, that...
Yeah.
I knew what was wrong with me for 2 years. I really just wanted the medication, thank you, because if that doesn't work, then we'll talk more, but maybe we could try treating this issue that you've let me have first, please. The only time I had success with that was when I went to a doctor when I was 16 with like severe depression that was presenting through like anger bursts, which I now actually think was ADHD, but none of us knew it at the time. And she looked at me, looked at my mum and went, same thing? And my mum went, yeah, and it went, okay, here's a script. I'm like, oh, that was easy. Okay. That was unexpected. But it's back and back and back and back in my family files. So they were like, we're not even going to bother. It's like, all right, thank you. So, yeah, but that is so weird. So they won't. Yeah. Goodness.
Well, I think it might depend on what you're going for, because mine is an internal thing. It's not a chronic pain thing. My mother has fibromyalgia, and as well as some like spine problems and all of that. But like for fibro pain, they won't prescribe her pain medication. So it does depend on what kind of medication it is, I think. Psych meds, they were happy to throw at me. They gave me anti-nausea meds. I have not, like, occasionally I will have nausea with my pain and the running to the bathroom constantly thing, but it's usually not nausea.
Yeah.
It's usually just a rapid downward exit. You know,
Something
or
back,
just pain.
That is a great way of phrasing it.
I try.
I do Trump's got it right, Drac. Everything does come back to poop.
Yeah.
Well, I knew when I was thinking about this,
think it's
I was
scrubs.
like, we're going to talk about it because that's the whole, like, that's 90% of my digestive issues comes down to poop.
Yep.
And it's very uncomfortable. And I was like, yep, they're going to love that.
Oh.
I mean, I would kind of like to approach from the other point of view here, of the sense that I have actually experienced the same, in the sense of lots of meds, no diagnosis for a very, very long time. It's usually more of a reactive response than a long-term kind of plan. But I will also say that, having been through the digestive side of things myself as well, that doctors do actually have a point when it comes to how your body unadapts to processing things. So while I don't want to justify the hand waviness,
well, yeah,
they have, especially if you've visited a new doctor, or it's like the first time you've seen a doctor, quite often you're going to have to jump hoops. And this goes for everyone. You're going to have to jump hoops. For me, it was go gluten-free, eliminate these things, go on a FODMAP diet. They're always going to go through these things. And quite often, as just speaking to all of the people on the podcast so far, you have to jump the hoops to get to the long-term goals. But with an American healthcare system, that seems impossible. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is, this wasn't followed by some suggestions for options like that. Like you said, cutting this, cutting that, changing your diet plan. It was literally just her acting like I had never in my life eaten a vegetable and had one for the first time. This is after probably close to 10 years of this. And I told her, like, it started suddenly too. I told her, I told her the whole story, and she still acted like I had never seen a vegetable. And it's part of it is my weight, because a lot of the time people don't think you have a digestive problem when you are plus size, because you associate that with rapid weight loss. I don't get that, and that's probably because of the thyroid issue.
I was gonna say, thyroid.
Exactly.
Fucks up your weight, whether it can go either way.
And I do drop weight quickly when I'm having an episode. It's just that I have enough on there that you don't notice it real quick. I'll drop 10 pounds in a day. It's wild. But it doesn't change anything enough for them to care. If it doesn't stay off, but it also means I gain it very quickly because I'm not processing things correctly, or because I'm eating terrible things to try to stay fed. Like I live on rice, eggs, and chicken, or cheese. Less cheese lately because I've been trying to avoid too much dairy. But yeah, so they don't take you seriously when you're overweight in the first place, and it's increased rapidly because in America our diets are so, I know it's kind of the whole, was it Western world? East, West is hard to remember for me too. Anyway. But like the general diet isn't great. So when you say something like I can't eat vegetables, they assume you mean I don't like vegetables. But I do like vegetables. I will sometimes just eat a can of spinach. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna suffer for this, but it's delicious. I would love to be able to eat vegetables and eat a salad again, but I can't take that risk. That's a long weekend kind of thing. You eat that on a Friday when you don't work, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, just to cover all your bases.
I'm fucking wild tonight, lads. I'm eating a fucking Caesar salad. Like,
Literally,
hell yeah.
like do this.
Just a
too. I'll be
shot
like,
of
hey,
whiskey on the side. I'm going for some of that
anybody
gluten
want
as
to
well.
party with me? I'm gonna have some spinach and some coffee. Let's go.
Hell yeah. I might even follow it up some sorbet. Fuck yeah.
But that's also the thing. One of the things that I find so just gobsmacking when it comes to doctors, right? It is a given fact that if you are not getting the required nutrition and you're not getting the required amount of calories or have the right things in your diet that will allow you to function correctly, that your body will go into starvation mode and hold on to everything. Everything.
That explains a lot.
Like, it is, you can, I mean, it's shown, like, you know, when people go on these extreme diets where they're not eating enough calories, that they don't drop the weight because they are not eating.
Right. And in my case, a lot of the time, I'm not able to eat much. So I will try to boost my blood sugar by drinking sugary things, usually like a Gatorade or like an electrolyte drink. You know what I mean? I'm ingesting sugar and nothing else some days. Because, I try to have broth on hand, but it's also kind of expensive to keep broth on hand. Because you either have to stand there and make broth for 6 hours, or you have to have it, buy the prepackaged things, or keep it in the freezer. I don't always have a reliable, it's healthier than drinking sugar water, but at the same time, sugar water is easy to store. You have water, you have a mix, you make a thing, you drink it. So I'm ingesting a whole bunch of sugar that I wouldn't normally be having because I just need to keep something in me,
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh, but you're not super skinny, so I think you're eating just fine." And I'm like, "All right, it's been 3 days, but sure."
I've had this argument with a lot of people, especially a lot of people who do or have admittedly grown up with more privilege, in that, like, yes, if you look at the price of individual foods, it looks like eating healthily is cheap, but you can't just eat 4 apples and a banana and that's your breakfast, because then actually if you're like, oh cool, well actually that's enough nutrients for one meal, now times it by meals and snacks and actually being able to store that food and knowing how to prepare it. And if you actually can't store bananas and apples together, so make sure you have enough room, because one gives off a certain gas which will poison the other essentially. Don't you dare put that kiwi in the fridge because that'll kill you. And it's not cheap at all to eat well.
No.
Shit food is affordable, and sure, it gives you a lot. It gives you a lot of the basics to make sure you live, but it doesn't give you, or to survive. It doesn't give you what you need to live. Like, and Drac, I completely understand what you said. So that half of last year, and this does go into weight loss talk for a second. I was on an extreme reduced calorie diet of like 1.2k a day because I couldn't exercise much, and I lost a stone over the last 2 months. I fucked that off because I couldn't do it any longer, and I've pretty much gained it all back. So 6 months of suffering and constantly thinking about food was for absolutely nothing. And but I can't eat vegetables, which I think is actually an ADHD or potentially an autism thing. But trying to get into a discussion about that's a nightmare as well. Because I throw up because the texture I can't take. The taste is great. I love the taste and smell of vegetables. Can't eat them at all. Yep. So I'm not getting any nutrients whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. And I'm sorry, Goldar. I wish, because obviously I'm not a small lass either. It's fat phobia, unfortunately. They just go, you're fat, you've eaten. It's like, yes, but all I've eaten is shit. I can't eat anything better.
Right. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like I've eaten chocolate because I couldn't stomach anything else. Like,
yeah,
exactly.
And part of it, like, they do tend to be even more dismissive of women or women presenting, people as well. I don't know why exactly that is, but it definitely is a thing.
because there is a stereotype of where women don't they overemphasize their pain.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we're doing the opposite constantly.
But that's a very well-known stereotype that is prominent in the medical field, is the assumption that women actually ham up their pain. And
yeah, I don't understand why they would think that, because what exactly do women gain by pretending to be in more pain, when all it really does is mean no one takes them seriously, even if they're not doing it.
It gets even worse when you add skin color into the mix as well. The amount of
Black
women,
sure.
POC women, like especially I say this from like discussions on the Through Our Eyes streams, but the amount of people that have just been left in hospitals, like, you're making it up. Come back when you're not looking for drugs. It's like, oh my dear God, like their appendix burst. Like
I genuinely think that's what they were concerned about with me when I went to the ER the first time for my appendix, was that they thought I was looking for pain meds. I wasn't. I just wanted it to stop. I don't like taking medication. Actually, I think it's an autism thing for me, because it actually upsets me to be impaired. And so a lot of times pain medication hardly works on me anyway. They gave me so much fucking morphine, and then they gave me like whatever is like mega morphine. I don't remember what it's called. It was like they injected me with water. I had no pain relief, no dizziness, no any symptoms of medication in my system. So I wasn't looking for pain medication. I don't want it. I've gotten wildly sick from it in the past. I just wanted them to find out what was wrong with me. Because 13 hours unable to move because my abdomen was hurting so bad is not okay and normal.
No, it's not.
I couldn't get out of bed. Like, I was laying on my stomach in bed, and I would try to get up and roll over to go to the bathroom or to get a drink, and I couldn't. I just stayed in bed. So it was very frustrating. But that's one of the reasons too I haven't ever even looked into the idea of getting my hypermobility and my weird joint issues dealt with, because I'm sure I'm self-diagnosing myself with EDS, but I don't want to deal with it because I know they're going to just think I'm looking for pain meds. I'm not. I want solutions, and to make sure that nothing else is wrong under the surface that I can't see,
Pain medication is just a band-aid, really. Like, I'd really rather
and
not be taking packs of codeine a week.
Right, and some people need it because they can't function without, because the pain level versus their functionality level are not working well. I'm functional in the sense that, my physical structural pain is not that bad. I want to be able to eat food and go and do things and not worry about all of it at the same time, So for me, pain medication is not the answer. I don't want it, but they keep thinking that that's what I'm looking for. And I had a similar experience when I was trying to get medicated for my psych issues, because I have very resistant anxiety and depression. I'm very drug resistant in that as well. And they kept giving me stuff and being like, I don't know why this isn't working for you. And I'm like, I don't know either. I don't enjoy this. I would rather take none of it. Those I do get the side effects from, So they tried 12 different things, and I was like, I hate it here. Please make this stop. I don't want to feel like I've been pulled out of my body every 5 minutes in a conversation. Not good.
I mean, I identify very heavily with that experience.
It was so weird. It was literally felt like an out-of-body experience. I'm sitting here talking to my boss one day, and it was like I wasn't physically looking at the back of my own head, but spiritually, I was. And I was trying to maintain this conversation with my boss the whole time, and I was like, all right, this needs to stop.
Yeah.
So, fun times.
I've experienced the same in some sort of high stress or illness situations. In fact, it happened during the last RI stream. There was just a good 3 or 5 minutes of disassociation where I'm like, oh my fucking god, back. Like, come on. I'm not moving. I need to move. Like, Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, I was mainly referring to the medication experience.
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry, we're just vibing over here. Sorry, Track.
Yeah.
Astral plane vibing.
Mainly because it was to focus on the experience of how our battle with medications is, especially with chronic illness, is quite a long haul sort of thing. A lot of people expect that to be here's a pill, it's fixed. In reality, especially when it comes to antidepressants, mental health approaching medications, or pain relief, likelihood is you're going to end up feeling a lot shitter before you actually find the one that works.
Yeah. And if you can't afford to keep finding new pills, because they don't all have the same cost. Because, like, the one, like, using mine as an example, I was on one that was like $20 a bottle. 30-day supply. All right, that's kind of sucky, but it's fine. I had one that was $200 a bottle. 30-day supply. I can't do that, and that was, like, not even a high, like, that was just an antidepressant. I'm not on insulin. If I was on insulin, I wouldn't be on insulin. Because I can't afford that kind of thing. People shouldn't, I don't know, this is getting into my angry healthcare rant, but
it usually does. It's okay.
It's the American in me. I'm sorry. We shouldn't have to worry about that when we're already worrying about, is this medication going to be okay? It's going to help? Is it going to hurt me worse? And the normal stuff of everyday life, because that doesn't stop you from, getting a flat tire or needing to buy groceries and have to go to the store, and then you have to go to work. And on top of all of that, you're in pain in some capacity or discomfort of some sort. And now you have to worry about how you're going to afford your medication. Like, why? Why is this happening?
I mean, I cannot really fathom how it's still a case. I mean, I have been in I've lived in a country that I had to pay medical expenses for as an international student. Right. So I have some experience about paying for my chronic health.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like, getting used to not calling out an ambulance at any time that you are unsure whether or not you're going to continue breathing because
yeah. And I've actually been in an experience where, like, somebody was trying to call an ambulance for me and I told them to stop because, like, I almost blacked out at work. And I was like, please do not. I cannot afford that. If I'm not fine in about 20 minutes, we'll consider it. Because I no. Absolutely do not. I don't know.
Still here, just trying to fix this disconnect. Sorry.
Oh. Yeah. I don't know how much an ambulance ride costs, but I don't want to find out the hard way.
Yeah.
I actually have considered getting one of those, like, medical bracelets that says, if XYZ happens, don't panic. Please don't call an ambulance. Because if it's something like, you did a whoops and fell and it's real bad, yeah, absolutely fine. I'll deal with that. But if it's just my chronic illness flaring up and something that upsets and alarms somebody who doesn't know what that looks like from the outside, I don't want to have to deal with that.
Are you?
Which is really very frustrating.
Sorry, I'm just checking up on Paige to before we continue. Is it all good?
Oh God, yeah. Oh, for God's sake. Yep, all good. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm having issues left, right, and center.
Oh no.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
I still feel like I know I didn't actually jinx anything, but it's just very typical of me arriving at a place and everything going wrong. And I find that really amusing and sad.
I mean, I used to have that exact feeling as well, but
Well, I mean, there's the joke is that I'm like this accursed eldritch entity, right? And so it just tracks a little too well.
Well, needless to
Hashtag
say,
Cthulhu things.
needless to say, you have not cursed anything. You are not.
Not yet.
Not that we're aware of.
Not that we're aware of.
Nah, I like you too much to curse you.
Okay, right. While Paige sorts out that, whatever that is,
Gestures to everything.
this. Let's move on to our next question. So, what's something you wish people knew about? What stigmas or misconceptions do you experience?
The two biggest ones, I kind of touched on them a little earlier. One is that because I'm having a good day doesn't mean that I'm all better. It's not gone forever. You know, I could have a good week. I could have a good month. Knock on wood, I might someday have a good year. But it could still, probably will still come back. You know what I mean? People seem to think that, like, it's, oh, you had a migraine and then it's gone, so you'll never have one again, right? No.
Yeah, that's how migraines work.
Like, yeah, or oh, you were sick to your stomach. Did you have the flu? No, that was just the normal, you know. It's hard to explain that to just anybody, you know, who doesn't already have either a chronic illness themselves or someone in their immediate circle who does, that they are also like aware of it. You know what I mean? And the other one is that just because someone is self-diagnosed does not mean that they're just flippantly going out there and slapping a label on any old thing. You know, I have spent years researching and reading on things, and I still am uncomfortable giving specific names to any of the things that I have. But sometimes you kind of have to, because there's no other way to really explain what's going on with yourself. And if it helps people to self-diagnose, it shouldn't be shamed to self-diagnose. I don't know how much everybody else has seen that, but I've seen a lot of that where people will be like, self-diagnosis, get out of here. And I'm like, but why?
I mean, I have, because I've spent so long with chronic pain that no one knew how to associate it to. I would just call it my mystery pain.
Yeah.
Because that way, it helped me explain to people how it's something that I've had for a very long time. It's something that happens out of the blue, and it's something that I have no fucking clue what it is, and no one else does. So
yeah, I think my usual is the flesh prison rebellion, when I have to do that. But if I'm in a restaurant and I have to say I can't eat wheat, I'm celiac. People understand celiac better than me saying I'm gluten-free. So I will say I'm celiac because I have a half diagnosis that I'm celiac. You know, the doctor said, I think it's this, but I'm never going to check. So I go with it, you know. But normally, yeah, no, I'm like, the flesh prison is in rebellion today. And my boss is like, what the fuck? And I'm like, yeah, same. But yeah, those are probably the biggest two that I have. Is like, just because you're better one day doesn't mean you're better forever, and also just because you're bad one day doesn't mean you're bad forever. Like, you can have a good day, and also let people self-diagnose if they need to, as long as they don't do it super irresponsibly. Like, there is a difference. I don't know.
I mean, do your research is what I would say.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
I wouldn't tend to encourage those who haven't had some sort of medical or biological education to depend entirely on self-diagnosis without reason to bring them towards such.
Right.
So,
definitely. And I would never recommend, like, prescribe yourself this. Like, don't do any medication stuff based on your self-diagnosis. That's dangerous. But as far as I think it's also a very handy tool to get doctors to pay attention. I mean, I haven't had much luck, but to come in and say, I think it's this is why.
yes.
Give them a direction to look in.
Having a direction, I'm increasingly finding doctors actually want it.
Yeah.
Which is not what I would ever thought I'd say.
No, with my fibro diagnosis, the one thing I avoided was saying just what I thought it was, but it was more, I wrote down all the stuff that I was experiencing. Then I went on to basically the NHS website and wrote down what their official guideline terms were for what I was experiencing, and then took that list in. They looked and went, oh, but based on this, I think it's, and we literally both went fibro, and then she went, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those fucking Disney movie moments of like, and it was one of those where self-diagnosis did help because it meant I knew what I was trying to convey to the doctor. Because if I just went and say, feels like I have a pimple on my shoulder, she'd be like, well, you have a spot on your back, you fucking idiot. And it was like, no, what I'm trying to explain to you is that I have a pressure point under my shoulder blade, which constantly feels like a small needle. But the closest way to explain that was, I have a spot on my back.
Yeah, they don't like when you say my cells are angry for the record. That makes them very jumpy. And that actually made them try to get me to go to a psych at the time. That was when I was like 16, so whatever. Yeah.
The thing is, things can be down to so much interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Most, 80% of people aren't trained to talk in medical lingo. They're not, they don't understand how the system kind of diagnoses or analyzes. It's, I mean, yeah. So someone's going to come in and say, it hurts. How does it hurt? It hurts.
Yeah, and some people don't, like, I don't know how many people are hyper aware of the kinds of pain that they are experiencing. I can tell you what kind of headache I'm having just by the way the headache exists. Is it too much sugar? Is it not enough sugar? Is it not enough water? Is it not enough sleep? Not enough caffeine? Too much caffeine? Is it just a mysterious headache that came on from the void? Like, I can tell before they get into like peak death mode what will head it off. I don't take even headache medication unless I know it's not going away on its own. Mostly because it will upset my stomach. So I save the Tylenol for the real doozies. Things like that. Like, I can tell when my stomach is upset because of something I've eaten, or if I have a flu, like a bug. I can tell, not all the time, because sometimes it gets to be very like crossovery, and that's always fun. I think it's an autoimmune condition, so it seems like if I do something to trigger my immune system, it will also trigger my additional issues, which is a whole big thing with the pandemic. I have been dancing on the very fine line between boosting my immune system and not boosting it high, because if I do, I'll still get sick, you know? So I don't think most people, though, are aware of what kinds of pain they're experiencing. And I didn't realize this until I was talking to somebody and they were like, I have a headache. And I'm like, well, what kind of headache? And they're like they expected me to think they had flavors of headaches or something. And I'm like, well, is it water? Can I get you something? And they were like, it's just a headache.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
What part of your face is it hurting? Like,
well, yeah, and even just what kind of thing it is. Yeah.
Yeah. The point that I was trying to get across is exactly as Dottie was saying there in chat, is if you are going to self-diagnose, base it on things that have actually been seen by a doctor. Talk to a doctor. Don't avoid a doctor and just go on a self-diagnosis. Go seek help, seek a professional's advice. If there's a way in which you can quantify your symptoms in a clearer way to help speed up the process, that's okay. But likelihood is WebMed is going to tell you you've got cancer or death.
Oh yeah, no.
So look, there's so many sites out there now where you can put in your symptoms and it comes back with 50 different things that you have. It just can induce panic. Try to clarify what you're experiencing. Try to expand your vocabulary, so to speak. So
is just another tool to help you communicate what's going on. It's not so that you can go, well, I'm done now, because you're never going to get treated on just your perception of something.
No, definitely not. It's and a lot of the time too is you don't want to underdiagnose either, because if it is a serious issue and you look at WebMD and it's like, you just have this, you're not going to look into getting treatment for something that's minor when it could be something important too. You know, so it goes both ways in that way. You don't want to over panic, but you also want to take responsible action to make sure that you're taking care of yourself.
I mean, there's a lot of things where, like, it could be a cold, or it could be something else. The difference is if you use the tools out there to analyze your symptoms, keep checks, notice the things that are going on with you in the following 3 to 5 days. It'll allow you to go, okay, so this is abnormal, this is normal. This is how I feel when I feel it in response to this. It will allow you to make notes to take to your doctor. It will allow you to analyze it better, to just be aware of the things that you need to be looking out for.
Right.
In the same sense, remember that your brain is a dick, and the moment that you read those symptoms, you're going to fucking get half of them, because your brain is going to go, oh, but I've got this, look, I'm jittering now, look, I didn't have that before. It's like, yes, that's because you fucking read it. Your brain does tend to be a bit overreactive.
Your brain's a theatre kid. It just gets dramatic.
Basically. So be aware that you can actually manifest symptoms as well.
Yeah.
There is,
and
in fact, an entire disorder based around the fact that you can actually convince your own body that it's ill.
Yeah. And like I was saying, this is definitely very specifically my experience. I'm not trying to push anybody to do any self-diagnosis. I want people to understand that if somebody doesn't have a, like, especially with like my autism and ADHD more than anything, or like, yeah, I don't want people to think that because I don't have a doctor saying that I have it, that I'm just lying about something, that it fits 99%, like, of, you know, like, I if I make a checklist and then I make a checklist of what the official stuff is, it does one of these, like, meshes really well. So things like that, it's, if it makes your life easier for stuff like that, I don't want you to like feel like shamed for not having an official diagnosis, because sometimes you can't get one.
I'm just trying to clarify that.
Yes, definitely.
We're not trying to encourage basically being your own doctor.
Oh yeah, no.
Just that it is a tool, not
yeah,
a solution. And first and foremost, if healthcare was free, there would be no question about the fact that you would be at the doctor.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, healthcare is a privilege, whether unfortunately you're having to pay through the nose for it in America or if in the UK they just really, they're so overworked, underpaid, and it's a nightmare.
Underfunded,
underfunded massively as well. You know, or whether you're in other countries that have their own set of issues. It is a privilege, unfortunately, to be properly diagnosed, but using all the tools to ensure that when you finally do get to a doctor, whether you have to pay for one or it's taking you a year to get there, you can give them the most succinct information that will help it stop being so long of a road.
Very much.
So I definitely think you're right, Goldar. Like, self-diagnosing, if it helps you, is great. It's just that you need to try and make that a step, not. Again, you is now the royal you. It's like it's not like bad Goldar. It's more I'm trying. Oh, bloody brain does this all the time. That's the undiagnosed, self-diagnosed ADHD there.
Yeah. Oh, it's fun.
But
exciting.
One day.
Yeah,
it never gets boring, does it?
It's a
wish for more sometimes.
Process.
So was that sentence, Drac. You got there.
What happens when you put 3 neurodivergent people in a call and try to keep them on track for 2 hours?
Yep.
Chaos.
Everything's covered in Vaseline and the platform doesn't work, and it's
I hate.
At least we talked about poop early.
I did.
I'm sorry, do you want to go back to the poop? Is that...
No. I'm so tired.
Right.
You're diverse for this. Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Last question for like actual questions. I don't know whether we've got any audience questions, but feel free to submit them. Is trying to end on a more positive note. Tell us what you can take away from your experience and what good has come of it.
I would say it's probably just the way of being understanding that's different when you experience any kind of a long-term issue. It helps to be able to relate to other people, even if they're not long-term ill or long-term having a problem. You can be different kind of patient because you know, like, yeah, sometimes life is just like that, you know. At least for me, that's what I feel like I have learned that over time, is just being able to be like, all right, and roll with it. When other people have a problem that comes up that absolutely was not foreseen, because sometimes you make the plans, you do everything right, and something still comes up, you know. So it has helped me not be as upset when that happens, I think. Yeah.
Anything else to add? Or sorry, my brain's kind of run out of sugar, so it's just kind of gone.
It's just slowing down now. I don't think I have anything specific to add.
Sorry, that's the sugar crash right there. So,
Somebody get Draco
no
Coke.
worries. Here's some tea.
Oh, fantastic. What kind of tea do we have?
This one is green tea with raspberry, and then this over here is my apple cinnamon black tea. And then I got water over there. I haven't touched the water.
Tea is mostly water.
It is, and I don't like water. I drink it because I have to.
That's why I drink a lot of squash. So.
See that? Yeah, that's what I have like the mixes and stuff in there, but I could just have tea. It's early. I can have tea now.
Oh yeah, time zones.
Oh. Yeah, they're annoying. I forget they exist sometimes. Really fun.
Paige, have you got any questions for Goldar?
Not specific. I would like to just ask about the eyes. I know you explained a bit of English. You explained a bit about it, but I am very curious because they're very cool and I like them, and there are lots of eyes in your background. Obviously, this is a podcast.
There are. I have I have a lot of eyes everywhere. I like them, and it kind of gets into kind of a complicated thing. Actually, is I constantly feel like I'm being watched. You would think this would mean I wouldn't want to see eyes. However, it's kind of turned into if you're watching me, I'm going to watch you back and make you wish you weren't watching me. But it's also just aesthetically, I really like them. It's layers of reasons for it. I have on my hand. These are going to be real tattoos. They're currently temporary, but yeah. No, it's been for a few years. I was wearing eye jewelry, and just recently I've been I went. That's my brand now at this point, Yeah. Somebody in chat says what we do in America in our private lives is between us and the NSA. Yeah.
Fair.
Or us and our apartment complex neighbors, or all of the aggressively conservative people in town. They're just always watching.
I do like the memes of just every American their FBI agent as they're just watching Adventure Time for the 16th time. They're like, no, again. Everyone's a signed
do
FBI
you do
agent.
anything else? Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm hyperfixating. Sorry, mate.
I do love Night Vale. Yes, I see that in chat there. Night Vale is amazing. The Magnus Archives also amazing. Both eye iconography. Not why I like it, but it definitely adds to why I like those. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
No problem. I'm happy to answer all kinds of weird questions. If anybody doesn't have a question about health, I'm happy to answer weird things. That's fine.
Well, I haven't had any audience questions submitted. So while I give them chance to maybe ask some questions that are not about the health stuff, have you got anything that you would like to say before we finish up?
Not so much. I mean, just people should do their best to be understanding of other people's situations and their own. Give yourself the patience that you deserve, because it's actually harder to give yourself patience than it is to give someone else patience sometimes, at least for me, because you're used to holding yourself to a standard, but sometimes you got to realize that's someone else's standard. There's no reason you have to hold yourself to that. It's been ingrained in you for some reason, but that doesn't mean you have to be that. You can be whatever you need to be at the time that you need to be it. And I say this, and I'm completely hypocritical, because I will turn around in 5 minutes after this call ends, and I'll be like, wow, you should have said this better. You should have done that. But you know what? I'm making the decision to not let that be a problem. So yeah, just, understand your limitations, and also don't let yourself hold yourself back because of those limitations. because like if you're like, I don't want to go do anything because what if something goes wrong? Like just do it. If it goes wrong, then deal with it. That kind of thing. Actually, the thing in chat, somebody was asking about steak or chicken. Either are fine. Meat, for some reason, does not bother my digestion. But there's like a 20% chance that anything will, but meat, eggs, and rice are like the most stable things in my diet. Yeah.
Pretty good. You can make a fierce egg fried rice with chicken.
Yeah. If I could figure out how to make fried rice without it turning into either like ashes or mush.
Yep.
Just, I can't get the texture right.
Nope, me either.
Okay, you both need to come over and I'll make you chicken fried rice. And
fuck yeah.
I'm gonna hold you back. I'm gonna walk my ass across the ocean. Woo! Colby, I make the rice at the beginning of the week. This doesn't change anything. Sorry.
Right. Okay. If no one's got any questions, then I think we can finish up. Thank you so much for joining us, Goldar. I hope you enjoyed your time here, and we really appreciate you spending it here with us and sharing your story.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Sai, can I get a shout out for Goldar? Because Goldar doing her own shout out would be weird.
It is always weird. Yeah, because was that yesterday? Tuesday, yeah.
Where you and Josie shouted each other out.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not doing mine. I'm just gonna go over here and do Josie's. My favorite though is to shout out the streamer while they're streaming because that's fun.
And as always, Paige, thank you for joining us for the podcast. Can I get shout outs for Paige too, please? Yes, well, thank you all in chat for joining us. I hope you had fun. I hope this was interesting and educational. Don't know when the next podcast is going to be at the moment, unfortunately, because February is yes, it is a thing.
February is a month.
All the work.
Yeah, February is a shitstorm. But next stream for me will be on Sunday, so I hope you all have a good rest of your evening. I hope you all have a good rest of your day. I hope you all have a good rest of your week. If you'd like to keep in contact outside of stream, do follow on the social medias, the Twitters, and the Instagrams, and join the Discord, where all the shenanigans happen. But yes, I will see you all soon. Say bye all.